chance to look through it, that's fine. Thank you. We'll go through that again a little bit later. We're just going to do an approval of the agenda. Everybody, we're all good with that? Yeah. And adoption of the minutes. I don't know when the last time anybody went through those, but let's go for an adoption of the minutes on that. We're okay with that. Everybody's in favor of that, adopting those. Everything's good. Thank you again, Steph, for all that diligent work. And do we have any public comments? Why do we never have public comments? It's usually so it's often so contentious, public art, and I don't know, are we doing a very good job or just like invisible or something?
Well, did we get a lot of feedback after the unveiling?
I think there was lots of feedback on social media and conversations, but I actually don't recall any correspondence coming in. What was there any, Steph, to you, Jillian?
The only thing would have been the a Di commenting about the lack of flashing after the installation and the worry about the rain.
Yeah, right.
But that's been taken care of.
By Scott, thank you.
Yeah.
Not a problem. We still have to, we're still waiting on the proper capping. I'm not sure, Jillian, if that's come in, but we'll deal with it. Well, actually, we can talk about that now. We're going to number 4, business arising. So the update, yeah, let's just go through a little bit of that. Jillian, any news on that clear capping then?
No, but was I supposed to order that or?
Oh, sorry. Was that some confusion? I thought you were. I gave you all the information from CR Lawrence.
Okay. Okay. I guess I sort of thought we were going to stick with what. Okay. I can do that.
Okay. All right.
Sorry.
I mean, no, there's no panic. The capping that's there, I mean, it doesn't look terrible and it's doing its job. So it's not a panic for that. But yeah, if you need me to send you the link again, I can. We were just bringing that in from CR Lawrence, and I think I gave you all the codes on that. So thought it would be easier if you ordered it directly through the municipal accounts rather than me trying to pay for it and reimburse.
That's fine. And I think I just thought that we had to get something up, so we were just doing that capping. And I guess in my mind, we won't worry about putting a different one on because it actually doesn't look bad, even though it's white. I think it looks fine, but I don't know what the cost is to do this additional one, but we can check it out if everybody feels that they'd like to replace this with a different one.
Well, I've got a question.
Yeah. Mary Lynn.
We've got it along the tops right now, right? Is there any plan to have it on the sides?
No,
yes?
When I did the capping, so the first thing I did was actually tape off and bead out exterior silicone down the sides and just under the corners. So they're sealed. There's nothing can happen there. So the capping, yeah, we can discuss that right now. So the capping on it right now is just a plastic. It's actually a drywall cap. It's adequate for the job. I think there was some discussion about preferring to see a clear cap that wasn't so obvious. I think that was coming up in the last meeting, and even during while we were installing as well. So we can make a decision on that. The cost increase is not nothing. Like I think the white caps that we put on were a few bucks a piece, and the clear stuff, which is meant for glass, actually. I think that was going to cost us somewhere in the neighborhood of somewhere in the neighborhood of about $300, maybe. I think they were $22 a piece, times 16? Maybe $400, something like that. Hi, Jamie. Welcome back.
So
So
is there any difference on the longevity, one to the other?
arguably, no.
Well, I don't find that what's on there offensive or anything. I think we should just stick with what's already there.
I mean, I'd be certainly happy to do that. Less work, less work. I don't know, what should we take a vote on whether we should change or not change, or do you want to just, one of the things we could do is just leave it for the time being. We haven't heard any complaints about it.
Mhm.
I think, right? Is that true? Yeah.
I know.
Okay, no complaints. The only thing then, if we're going to decide, because I thought that was a temporary solution, I did not bead them with silicone. Otherwise, they would have been impossible to remove. So if we are going to keep them, the very least I would like to do is go back and just seal the ends so that water doesn't wick in, which is not a big deal. That's fairly straightforward. So I'm happy to do that. But yeah. Shall we just leave it as is then?
I'm fine with that.
Okay. I can't see everybody, so I'm going to assume if I've got 3 nodding heads, I've got everybody else is nodding. If anybody has another opinion, please be vocal. My apologies, my screen doesn't seem to want to put everybody in at once. So, okay, well, we'll just leave that as it is, and I will make a plan to get down there as soon as I can, most likely next week, to just seal up those endpoints, and we should be fine. And if anything needs to change, like, we can always reverse the decision. It's not a huge deal either way. And then I think it's always, it's easy to take the win and run away from a success like that. But it is also helpful to reflect on any parts of the process where maybe we felt there was some strain or a hiccup or something that happened that would have been a good learning moment or something to draw on or change for the next time. So this is an opportunity. I welcome anyone, if you have any comments or thoughts or suggestions about the process from the entirety of the process. Was there anything where there was a point at which you think, if we had just done that, it might have been a bit smoother? Anyone have any thoughts? Maureen.
There was a very compressed time period at around the point where the judges were put in place.
Yes.
And I think there was a bit of a hiccup there. So a little bit longer time period and a little bit more information flow back and forth with the committee about what was going on at that.
Yes, that is a good point. I remember there was some confusion about people not getting information and feeling left out of that, out of conversations. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I know it's funny, we felt like we had lots of time, but then as we figured out where the meetings would line up and what information we needed to provide to council and whoever at what point, things definitely shrunk in terms of timing. That isn't unusual, but definitely in future, we should remember that and make an allowance so that if we are planning a new call, that we leave ourselves a good 6 months in advance in order to get all of those things in place for sure. Yeah, good point. Anyone else? I can't see everybody's hands. Please just speak out if you have any other comments, please.
Yeah, I seem to recall we wanted to review the judging criteria, the sheets that we produced. Remember us having some conversations about that we wanted to reflect a little bit on if they were the right criteria or the way. So that'd be something we do sooner rather than later. Otherwise, we might not remember what we thought we wanted to review there.
Right. I certainly can't recall. We could go over that again. So you're talking about the criteria sheet that was handed to the jury in order to vet the incoming submissions. Okay.
I recall a conversation about, needing to review that a little bit. So.
Right. Okay. Steph, can we put that on next meeting's agenda that we can send out that sheet again, that we would all have an opportunity to look over it before the next meeting, and then everyone review it and bring any comments, suggestions, and clarifications with you for the next meeting. We can run through that and hopefully clarify some stuff. If any of you have any time also to, it's sometimes helpful to see what other calls, other jurisdictions, like say Squamish or smaller community juries, how they might have handled that as well. I'll try and dig up some things myself. So we'll get that on the agenda for next meeting. Cool. Any other comments? Oh, we're all good. Okay.
Well, I just wanted to commend you, Scott, on your planning for that installation. I think you put a lot of thought into how that would play out and how to use all the volunteers coming to help. So I think the thoughtfulness that you put into your planning really paid off and worked out extremely well. So thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you. I appreciate the comment. I felt like it was pretty seamless, actually. The whole thing went through quite well. I was quite happy with how the works went up. We could have run into many more problems than we did. So that was, I felt like we got lucky a number of times along the way. So that was great. And the volunteering and everybody's enthusiasm certainly made it a lot easier to get everybody just jumping on board to help out with trucks and loading and everything. So I honestly think given that this was our first major undertaking like this, I was thrilled at how it all played out, and I think kudos to all of you as well for all the work that you put in. There's other than these minor hiccups that we can note and improve upon for the next time, honestly, it went extremely well. So yeah, I think we all definitely get a pat on the back for that. So let's jump right into 4.2 for Phil. You can run us through the donation policy. There was that late addition, the donation process, the draft. Hopefully, if you haven't had a chance to read it, we'll go through it now, obviously, but I'll turn it over to you, Phil, and we'll go through this. Just before we do, though, can we? Have we got? Is there an action or desired outcome we'd like to see at the end of this discussion, Phil?
What I pictured was we'd talk it out. People might make suggestions, and we'd make the required changes, and then it might become policy, and maybe some of the public-facing parts would go up on the website.
Okay. Excellent.
That's all.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, that's great. I'll turn it over to you then. Anytime.
Okay, so this first paragraph, the charter on donations, is just lifted from our charter, this committee's charter, so it's not anything we really need to look at. It's just there for reference. So
Want me to share screen, or do people want that?
I don't know how to, so I'm scared to.
Would you like me to?
Sure, okay.
Okay, when you say charter, you mean our policy?
Well, whatever. I looked on the website, and the legislation that created our committee had this in it as well. Is that our charter?
You mean our terms of ref?
Yeah. It's not the terms of reference, it's the actual policy.
Okay, well, let's expand it. Thanks, Steph. So to do this a little backwards, step 1 is completion of the application form, which is at the bottom of this document because I added it afterwards after our meeting. So if you scroll up a bit, yeah, there you go, application text. Do we want to look at that?
Yeah, sure. Let's
Okay.
run through this. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so this would be kind of the public facing part of it. So if somebody was looking to make a donation, this is what I guess would be on the website. It has, it's basically outlining what we need and what the information we need and what a person donating can expect. Yeah, a lot of the other texts I looked in the other municipalities, the texts I looked at were, pardon me, were for people wanting to make donations, but it also covered a developer who was required to spend a certain amount of money on art. This also covered them. So it also talked a lot about commissioning agents or people who acted as agents who wanted to donate, not so much about artists. So the other municipalities stuff covered both. Ours is more, this one I crafted is more focused on the individual as a donor, whether the artist or someone with an artwork they'd like to commission or donate.
Okay, beautiful.
Should I scroll down?
Sure, yeah. So that first point was about what the information required. This part is about how it would be judged by us. And to let the donor know what is what the criteria is. So I don't know if any of us if we want to talk about each one specifically. It'd be great if we worked out a consensus and everybody liked it. So I'd love to hear changes or suggestions.
What I'm struggling with a little bit, Phil, is how this relates to what's currently in the policy. Is this in addition to what's there, or
Yeah.
is it?
So
it's not intended to replace?
No, this is like the fine-tuned. The thing at the very top says there will be a process for evaluating donations, and I think this is it.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
So I made special care in the paragraph after the list here to note the maintenance costs, which won't always come to mind to people who want to donate artwork. So I just wanted to make sure that it has to be kind of emphasized that this is expected.
Is it necessary to include the fact that the artist might have to be like, like the artist is responsible for the maintenance, right? Or is municipality?
Yeah, I think it's us. So the title is transferred to us. We own it, and it's our problem after that.
Yeah, Phil is correct there, unless it's some kind of specific agreement made up on private land. But if it's going anywhere on public land, it has to be held by us. It has to come into our
Okay.
collection with a signed transfer form and all that. So I think it's a great point to keep that maintenance. I think there's always opportunity to, negotiate maintenance issues. Some works obviously would require more or less, depending on the nature of them. So that's something that we can negotiate with on a case-by-case basis. But we do, Phil is right. We absolutely need to have it in there as something to make sure we've covered, because it often does get lost in the shuffle for sure.
So I just wondering, I'm not sure it has to be included in this, but we want to make sure that we don't run into a problem with someone doing the maintenance, but not considering the artist or not including the artist when maintenance is being done, because you're tampering with a piece of art that was created. And I'm not sure if it needs to be included in this, but we certainly need to get that covered off in some area.
Yeah, I think actually that's covered in another of our policy documents where, and it was something that came up with in regards to the Spirit of the Flame, that we would, whenever maintenance is going to be carried out, that we are in contact with the artists, either to just advise them or to actually contract with them to do the work. So that is covered. That's a great point, Greta. It is covered, I think, in another document.
Okay.
I have a couple of things. I'm just wondering, number 7 in the application text where it says estimate of annual maintenance costs, maybe we could add estimate of required annual maintenance and costs. So not just what it would cost, but like what do they anticipate needing? What would the maintenance be?
Sure, yeah.
And my other question was about the artistic merit of the work. How is that evaluated?
Yeah, what I've written here is just for the outward facing people who are looking to make an application. When we scroll up, I've outlined maybe what I thought should be our internal process, which covers how we would evaluate that.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So we could move on to that if there's nothing else to add to that lower part. Okay.
Yeah. Any other? It looks like you've covered everything to me. So yeah.
Okay.
If everybody's okay with that.
So then, if we scroll up to step 2, which is this is us, the committee, doing like a feasibility assessment to decide whether, not to decide if it's a nice piece of art or not, but whether it would work at all. Right. So and that has a bunch of really practical things that cover like the municipality's liability in case of injury, or if the artwork will be strong enough to be out in the weather for a good amount of time, whether, for viability, whether it's kind of crazy and too big, and kind of an unreasonable project to take on. And then authenticity is just about clearing the title to make sure no one, if it's a donated work of existing art, that no one else has any claim to the title of it, just for legal reasons. So this stuff is all, this has nothing to do with aesthetics. This is us just thinking, is it even possible? And I think most of that would be pretty straightforward for us to take a look at. And if we had questions, asking engineers or maybe someone who does kind of public liability stuff for the muni, if there is a person who does that. I know in Vancouver, there's an officer of risk or something like that, whose only job is to look at terrible scenarios. Anyway, so that's what that is. And if anybody thinks of anything that else should be added to that, that'd be great.
Looks pretty thorough.
Mm-hmm. I can't think of anything that's missing. That's good.
Good. It's just for, yeah, okay. So then we go down to step 3, which is the jury assessment. So because we are doing these meetings in public and everything here is in public and out in the open, it's a tough thing in a community full of creative people to have us publicly talk about the aesthetic merit of a piece of artwork. For other reasons too, we would want to kind of put the aesthetic decision into a different group, an arm's length group. It also means that each jury, every time a jury is convened, there is like a different bunch of people. So it's not always the same 3 or 5 people making a decision for each artwork. So we've got to kind of spread out the number of voices that are brought in to make these decisions. Voices, people. And so my suggestion is here is 3 to 5, including one of us. The body should be anonymous and hold meetings in camera, that is not in public, and we should not let people know who is on these juries. The people who are brought in could also be stakeholders, people, for instance, whose house would be right in front of the proposed site of the artwork, or would have to live with it, or kind of, it's a kind of, we could bring in individuals that's kind of like a public consultation, but it's very specific. So their voices are included if they're, you know, particularly going to have to live with this for a long time. And the jury could sit for a number of artworks in one meeting. And then here's a list of proposed qualifications or proposed criteria, which is the aesthetic merit is number 1 and the hardest thing to explain in a meeting, but there it is. A review of kind of the artist's qualifications, kind of their reputation, which also covers their ability to finish an artwork if it's a work that isn't yet completed. What it means to Bowen, and that could also mean the artist resides on Bowen, would I think be adequate criteria for us to include in artwork. And then its relevance to its surroundings, neighborhood, environment, and history, and what it kind of means. So lots of public art makes lots of effort to place itself in its surrounding and to kind of be about the place it's in. And I think that is a good thing. And that is also, that's why it's listed here as a specific criteria to be, because it's important to support art that would be, I guess, about Bowen, on Bowen.
Could we add in and heritage somewhere?
Absolutely.
History and heritage.
And I think it might be important to note that these criteria, we shouldn't be seeing them as points to check off. And if an artwork doesn't necessarily have any, for instance, relationship to nearby architecture, that we're not, you know, that's not necessarily the point at which it gets shut down. It's about recognizing that that is part of the discussion that the jury would be having, and if it's important, how does it affect that? And but not all of those things would necessarily sort of impact or be part of necessary discussion. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just so we're all clear. Yeah.
Again, I'm looking at some of the material in the existing policy, and I'm doing that because when this will have to go forward to council, I would expect, if it's going to be incorporated into the policy. And some members of council will look for consistency between the new document or the addition and what is in the existing document. And in the existing document, Appendix C talks about the adjudication procedure for public art projects that are commissioned by BIM. And the jury makeup is different from what is suggested here. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but what is suggested for projects commissioned by BIM is that there be 2 PAAC members, a community representative, somebody from the design arts community. If there are partnerships involved, somebody from the partnership body, and then finally a First Nations community member wherever possible. So the question that will be asked is, why is this different from what is in the existing policy for commissioning artworks?
That's a fair question. There's no reason it should be any different. I hadn't looked at Appendix C, and I'm glad you have. And I think that is certainly fine to make this jury the same structure.
Yeah, that would make sense. Sorry, who did I just cut off there?
That was me. I mean,
Sorry,
I think what's stated here is briefer and more flexible, but it's just, you know, how do they align is going to be the question.
So there is, I'm reading the adjudication procedure here as well, Maureen, and what it says is that most panels may consist of the following. So, you know, we could, number one is 2 PAAC members. I think only had 1 on the jury for the lock block wall, and that was fine. I believe it was just 1, yes, as a member of PAAC, and then there was also a member of the municipality, community representative, 2 representatives from issues where there's community partnerships, and then 1 Indigenous community member whenever possible. So in fact, what Phil has written here could easily be adopted just exactly person to person. Including at least 1 member of PAAC. Yeah, that might, Phil, that might be a good way to just step 3 in your document, maybe just reword it slightly so that it's aligning with that selection panel membership. There's no, Maureen is right. Yeah, there's no reason it shouldn't do that.
Okay.
But again, these are, this adjudication procedure, this is project commissioned by us or by the Bowen municipality. So they're by necessity, there should be some flexibility with different ways different ways that the artwork may be coming into our registry or collection.
Yeah.
There can be some flexibility in that for sure.
Yeah, and if there's a reason for inconsistency, then that's perfectly fine. It's just, when it comes to council, I have to be able to, and Jillian as well, we would have to be able to explain why it was different.
Yes, no.
Information, that's great.
Perfect.
Maureen,
Okay, thank you for bringing that up.
You had a very good point about the smaller jury being more flexible, though. And I think that does make sense. that if we are commissioning an artwork, that we could organize like a more serious jury with like more members from different communities. Yeah. Is it of particular value for the donation jury to be more flexible? I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. There's not necessarily, you know, it's not a definitive answer on that one, but you know, I think if we could, you know, create a jury that reflected our stated procedures as much as possible, with the idea of some flexibility in that, I don't know that there would be any reason for concern.
Okay, well, yeah, let's just adopt that structure for the donations as well.
Okay.
Steph, I saw you were making changes to your document there. Is that going to be our document going forward?
You would like it to be?
I don't want to give you work for no reason, but if it looks like you already made some changes, so if you want to make that our document, then that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, no worries.
And then lastly, Phil, there was that bit at the end that we haven't really gone through. Do we want to just quickly read through that at the end of that document there?
Sorry, there's just, I'm just copying over. There's a bit about
Yeah.
staff being involved as non-voting.
Mm.
Do you want to carry that over as well?
Municipal staff?
In some instances, representatives from relevant municipal departments. Is that staff?
Oh, I think that was, you know, in some cases, let's say, depending on the nature or the location of proposed work that, you know, we would have the parks or operations, maybe somebody coming in, not as a voting member, but as someone to have, you know, be part of that discussion and say, oh, wait, you know, you can't really put it exactly there. You're in an easement, you're contradicting an easement, you know, but if you go 5 feet further this way, you're okay. I think that's probably what that provision is for.
Okay. So should I copy that over?
Yeah, we might as well include it. Let's mirror it as much as possible. That it doesn't say we have to or we don't. I think it's contingent on the proposal, and we can make a decision what we think is appropriate.
Okay. So I'm doing this without being on screen share because I know it gives people a stroke. So just taking care of your mental health.
Let's not have strokes. Yeah, no good. Not before a long weekend.
Yeah, strokes are for Mondays. So here is just there's step 3, and then the bit in italics is been copied over, and it's funnily formatted, but I won't spend time on that right now.
All good.
We might just have to change the 3 to 5 Bowen art people. It would be a different number, looks like.
Okay, so let's just get rid of that whole sentence maybe, and then go there. A jury, not a. Yeah.
Yeah, looks good to me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I can't stop myself. Sorry. Okay. That's just been copied over. And then I put this a little bit about the municipal departments, or what did we say on that?
Yeah, sure.
Keep it in? Okay.
I think it is an important piece to have in there because there are budgetary implications with accepting this artwork right down the road. So I think having staff involved is a good idea.
Yeah, considering that kind of stuff about the cost of the site, that was something that we should be discussing in step 1, which is not the jury's job.
Okay.
The jury's job is for the squishy stuff, right? The
Mhm.
aesthetic stuff, and not practical things like money and site, and if we need an earth mover in there or something like that.
And does this go to council then, like we did before? Then the jury would go to PAAC and then PAAC to council?
I guess so. I don't know. I didn't know enough about that process. But if that is the way it should go, then that it'd certainly be in there.
That's the way it went, but it went into a public meeting, if you recall. And
Yeah.
that
Yeah. If we bring the results of the jury to council, then the jury still stays anonymous. It just has to travel through us first.
I think we could close it under municipal service. Community charter municipal service is a closing.
I would prefer that, because in the dreadful circumstance where council said absolutely not,
Yeah.
that's embarrassing for council, it's embarrassing for us, it's embarrassing for the artists
Yeah.
to have something rejected at
Yeah.
the last minute.
That's
Okay.
an excellent point.
Just I'll add here. The jury's decision will go to a closed PAAC meeting, is correct, for review and recommendation to council. And then note, meeting may be closed under community charter section A. That makes sense?
Mhm.
If Maureen's happy, I'm happy.
Yeah, I'm happy. Maybe a bit of wordsmithing needed, Steph, but
Yeah.
that's the idea.
Okay. Was there anything else to add, or do we want to go through that end point now?
The end point, was that the public consultation thing?
I think this is about the donors.
Section starting donors are obliged to.
Yeah. Right at the bottom there.
Right. This is what I thought would be out on kind of the public application for the public to see, to know about these costs. It just kind of emphasizes that there's a maintenance cost, which I think most people won't think of.
Mhm.
So it just restates it basically in kind of a drastic way, saying it might be declined just because of this. It's emphasizing that point, because I don't think it's foremost in the minds of people who are excited about donating artwork.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no,
That's all.
Very good.
That's all it's there for.
Okay.
Is it a one-time cost or an annual cost, or?
Usually they're a one-time. You take the monies at the time of acceptance to a percentage value, or whatever amount might be agreed upon. Again, some works may require very little and some may demand more. Something that we would have to, as the PAAC, determine what would be sufficient, just so that we're not left on the hook. Once a thing is installed, that we have to now take care of it indefinitely with no funds set aside for that.
Could we add in one time before maintenance and repair fee?
We could.
What about if it's a temporary piece of art? So we're not keeping it forever. We're just, Phil and I talked about that yesterday about, things may filter through, artwork may filter through. To take that piece down and return it to the artist or the family or the person that donated it. because that may be an option too, that the piece may not live forever.
So, like as a new paragraph here? Is that where you're here?
But you
No,
know,
it's following on the
policy
next
on that?
paragraph.
what
No.
would be the policy on that though? That
Yeah.
what is the policy if it's just temporary? Where does it go when it's done?
I don't remember, but we do have a deaccessioning appendix in the existing policy. So again, whatever we say here needs to
Oh,
mesh with that, or it needs to change as well. I don't remember
Yeah.
the details. Do you
I
remember?
think a deaccession, I think that maybe any deaccession, so maintenance, repair, and any deaccession costs or remove, maybe deaccession is the wrong word, because if we're bringing a work in and it's already noted to be a temporary placement, that we're not technically deaccessioning it, we would be returning it, but the removal process is going to incur costs that should be part of the donation amount. We don't want to be on the hook for having to necessarily pay for a removal for a thing that, was donated, right?
Yeah, I mean that the very last paragraph, which is not on the screen now, what I said mentions about loans and the terms being negotiated. So it's really open
Mhm.
there. It
Yeah,
would
I like that.
It would probably be a good idea to talk about the cost of removal or returning, because that's another thing someone might not consider when making a donation. But yeah, it's very open, and it's just like the terms that will be negotiated.
I like that, Phil. I think that makes sense.
Hmm.
And all of these arrangements are going to be there'll be some commonalities, but there'll be such one-off arrangements that I think the more flexible, the better.
Yeah.
Phil and I talked yesterday about, like a permanent concrete base built, and it would be used for art, changing art. So the base is always there. Because it's kind of fun, to change the art.
But how do you know how big to make the base though?
Well,
It can be different sizes.
it's a quarter mile. I don't know, but I'm sure we can determine something, that is a general size.
There's a very famous thing in London of I think it's the fourth plinth, where there's a square with statuary and one of the plinths is empty, and they rotate artists' sculptures to be on that plinth. And I think the works are specifically made for that plinth and sized for it. So if we were to institute something like that, I think we'd just be asking for works that fit on our plinth and not consider things that didn't. This is kind of a separate discussion, because this is now more like a program that we're about to start.
Yeah.
So it's not really part of this donation policy, but I think it's a good idea and could be quite fun.
Yeah, I definitely think it's worth following up with further discussion on that in another meeting. I'd like to move on, just because I know we're now at the hour mark, and we should get through the rest of the agenda here. But I wanted to say thanks, Phil. That's an excellent work on that document. That super comprehensive, cohesive as well. So really, I think great move. Get us forward on that. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Jamie, too.
Oh, Jamie as well. Yeah. So thank you, Jamie.
Sorry, Scott, I did have one question, and this is probably a Maureen question, because it says the donors are obliged to provide a maintenance and repair fee, which will be administered by the Public Art Advisory Committee. And I'm not sure we can word it exactly like that.
I don't think we can either.
So could we say that it's it goes into the public art reserve because our annual maintenance budget is something that we request every year. So if we don't stipulate where these funds go, they, I think it's in our best interest to stipulate that if we can.
I mean,
Yeah, it's a good point.
in practice, we would probably, the Public Art Advisory Committee would probably end up being the one that we're keeping, eyes on this, but the actual administration as such would not rest with us. Would you guys be okay with just saying the Public Art Reserve Fund?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Phil? Phil?
Are you asking a question, Steph?
Oh, sorry. I think I froze out. You guys froze out. Is that okay?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Please. Okay. Great. Thank you again. Okay. Let's move on now. New business. The 2022 work plan. Is that something we can bring up, Steph?
Yes.
We're gonna go through that as a committee?
Just one moment, please.
Mm-hmm. Chop, chop.
No slow.
Okay, this is going to be really challenging for me to do this on my phone, isn't it?
This has been approved by council. That's correct, isn't it? Yeah.
Let me just sniff around. I'm pretty sure it has, but
I think so. I think I recall you bringing it forward, Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, we would have heard if it weren't. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm just wondering what actually needs to be done with it in this meeting.
Mm.
there was going to be
Would
2023, and just a fun talk. My recollection.
So just imagining next year
Mm-hmm.
and the projects. Which means that, Scott, you don't have to worry about not being able to see it very clearly.
That is true. Thank you.
So, yeah, so it has like Gateway Mural project was on the 2022 work plan. So that's done. And then identified 2023 project priority. So next item. So it just sounds like quite a bit of fun.
Mm-hmm.
The next ongoing asset assessment management.
Yeah, I think, that's those two things I'd like to make as a priority for us this year as a committee. Getting a registry of sorts compiled. It doesn't need to be like a print ready version or anything, but I'd like to get an idea of exactly the works that are out there. We should have a visit on all of those, gather any documentation information that may be missing for all of those works. And then at the same time, and this is going to lead into the point that got brought up in the last bit of discussion. So we should also be looking at identifying possible future sites for artworks. This could be in front of buildings that maybe are currently under construction. Maybe we've already started dialogue or discussions about those. The community center is an obvious one, but there are a number of other possible locations that we should identify as a public art committee that we might access or utilize in the future. And from that list, we might then put as part of a work plan the point that Jamie brought up, which was you know, an open platform, an open plinth that was installed to host a rotating venue of work that might be presented for 1 or 2 years, so that they're definitely temporary, and that could be almost a biannual thing where we, you know, invite an open call for proposals and then run that whole jury process, just like we did with the lock block wall, but for a three-dimensional work on a place. So I think we should definitely look at that. That should be part of our work plan for the rest of 2022. And then priority project for 2023. I guess, yeah, this is what is this? We're gonna like throw things at a wall, proverbial wall, and see what ideas froth up. Is that what we're doing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I recalled from last meeting.
What's that?
That's what I recall from last meeting.
Okay. Does anybody have anything to throw out at us right out of the gate? God. Hello.
Well, I'd like to know from Maureen if there's any update on the Davies Orchard stuff with Metro Parks, when they're starting on that, because that would be a great location for something.
The intention was to begin this month, and the cottages have all been vacated, the 2 that were occupied as B&Bs, and the Bow and Heritage cottages, my understanding is that they're all clear now. So everything had to be moved out, safely put into storage. And after that was completed, then Metro would begin work. So it's supposed to be happening. It's supposed to be happening this month, but it won't be. The work won't be done for about 18 months. So it's not a good venue for a 2023 project. Like to actually do a 2023 project. If we wanted to speak with Metro Parks about doing something on that land, there will be an opportunity for some additional community feedback in probably the late summer. What did you have in mind, Marianne?
I don't really have anything in mind. I'm just thinking of getting a dialogue going with them early, so that, you know, like you said, not necessarily doing anything until 2024 or whatever, but having a dialogue where they, you know, where we can maybe start thinking about what we would like to see there, and then, you know, putting out a call later, just getting on it earlier rather than later.
Yeah, I can bring it up with Jeff Fitzpatrick. I should also mention that there's public art in other parks, and also public art often incorporated into the weirdest things like bridges, water systems. I think there's a sewer system, small one, that has public art on the it's a large concrete that's being, you know, public artified. So they are certainly interested in having that conversation. And the fellow who was the director of parks some years ago had suggested that having a sculpture event in that park and turning some of the orchard area into a sculpture park would
That'd be amazing.
Really, really interesting to do. That's he has since moved on, but it was he was thinking in terms of good events for Bowen Island that would bring people to the park system. And he thought that a biannual sculpture event in the park would be really cool.
Love that idea.
Great. I'm sorry, Scott, and the rest of you. I have to leave now. I think we're just about at the end of the meeting, but I have to go now. I'm sorry.
Okay, Greta, thank you for joining us. Appreciate it as always. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, I wonder, I mean, the thing I just talked about, that we brought up already with the open plinth might be an opportunity for a 2023 priority project. We certainly got enough time to do that. I like, given our modest resources, it's nice to have projects like the lock block wall where we have an opportunity in the future to utilize effort and infrastructure we've already invested in, and a plinth, an open plinth would be similar in that regard, that we could see, rotating roster, that we know we've got, it's easy to plan things when you've already established certain parameters for stuff, and then you're just repeating. It smooths things out quite nicely. So that could be one. The site would obviously be the biggest hurdle at this stage, identifying a site.
I think there were some assumptions on the part of some members of council that the community center might be a priority site for public art. And I'm thinking about the timeline, Gillian, that community center is on a pretty fast timeline.
It is. Well, we're anticipating late summer or fall, really, 2023. And actually relevant to that, I was going to ask the committee, if we were thinking of that as a site, we're preparing a cultural spaces grant application for the community center, and public art is a potential component of that application that we could add to it. So that would, increase the budget for a project on that site. But I wanted, some direction a little bit, from this group as to whether or not to look at including something like that in the application. If we feel like we're committed to community center.
Is there any budget currently earmarked at that site for any public artwork, or we would be part of what you're doing is putting in applications for funding now, but we don't have anything, there's nothing secured or earmarked yet, or is
that
there?
Is correct. There are no designated funds for public art in the building right now.
Okay.
In or around the building. Yeah.
The budget documents that we reviewed recently show still 20,000 in the public art reserve, with another 10 going in this year. So if that information is up to date, then we've got $30,000 as of this year.
There may be still some expenses associated with the mural that aren't captured in that, possibly.
Yeah, I wondered about it because it's not being touched at all.
Yeah. I also think that it's, I think as a committee, we would certainly be open to spending some of that funding on a project, but for us to divert a large section for a purpose like that, when in fact it would seem to me that the onus of responsibility would be with the developer. In this case, it is the municipality, but it's a municipal building, it's a community center. Part of the mandate would be you would think would be supporting the local arts community. And so I frankly, it seems a bit odd that there wouldn't already be some funds earmarked specifically for art in some capacity for the site.
Well, I think the site itself has a large dedication to the arts community in terms of the spaces that are being built. And you probably have heard that, costs are higher than, when the budget was developed a few years ago. So we're just trying to get the building built, So, I think.
Yeah, but you see, it would be because that would be a great opportunity for a priority project, because in fact with that speedy estimated completion date for the center, we should be, if we knew we had some money earmarked for that, we should be actually engaging the process now, to work while it's being built to make sure that we have got utilities or whatever we need in place, and locations and spots, or a location within the site for a public artwork. That discussion should actually be happening now.
And it has at some level with the design team, but I guess it wasn't necessarily identified as a priority over getting the building built overall. But you're right, it's the time, before full infrastructure is in, it is.
Can I throw that on your, can we throw that, it's not just me. Can we throw that little task on your plate, Jillian, to kind of like tease that one out a little bit and see if they're open to getting some involvement specifically about a public artwork on the site?
You can, yes. I'm hesitant to come forth with additional changes now that we are working with a signed contract.
Signed contract with the contractor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So any changes obviously increase the costs of construction.
Yes.
I'm just trying to think of what might be an appropriate approach for that. We could, I guess it really depends on if we're considering something freestanding, requiring power, or like what exactly we might be considering for this, because infrastructure needs are significantly different, right? So
absolutely. Well, maybe, we would have to just work with the constraints of the opportunity as they were. And if it was a situation where, we do have access to site plans, do we not?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so we could have a review of those and just maybe identify possible spots where we would be able to think about incorporating some public artwork with whatever constraints are necessary given the site. And if we identify those with no further changes or possible risk to the change of the contract, could we open that discussion?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And I think potentially the very front of the building lends itself to something really interesting. There is a front plaza area, and there's a sloping lawn area in the front as well. So it could be quite beautiful. It may be a good location for a changing piece. Well.
Right, but let's maybe combine these two ideas, these two potential opportunities there. That could make a lot of sense.
Your earlier question, Jillian, was about the cultural spaces grant, and I think that from what I'm hearing, I think include a public art chunk of cash request in that grant application.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Is there an amount, or is there an amount set for that application, Jillian?
I don't know exactly the parameters around this component of it, so I'd probably reach out again to you all and by email that ask a little bit.
Yeah, any amount.
Yeah.
What was that?
No, I was just saying once we get a little further along in the application, so we're right starting to work on that. So
Okay. Yeah. I think what I was going to say is, any amount, makes a significant impact to us in our abilities. But, just as with the example of Sangre de Fruta, like we were able to really, whip that all up and really deliver something quite magnificent with that assistance. So it really helps us. And if that donate or that amount would be accessible, we could really do something. So how do we, I'd like to wrap this up a little bit. We're now almost coming up on 6 o'clock. So how can we, I'd like to solidify this discussion into an action, because otherwise it's going to get sort of lost. So
And have it as requested action that the committee has requested of staff that would be public art be included in the cultural spaces grant application.
yes, that is one part of that actionable item. I'm also thinking for us as a committee that we would something about developing, maybe we should start developing the loose, like the loose wording and the loose document of an open call with the idea of, let's assume that we would have success and we would be able to utilize a space out front of the community center, that it might become a platform of rotating biannual 3-dimensional works or something like that. Let's maybe, I'm just trying to think, like maybe we should start drafting a document for an open call based on what we've got here, and see if we can kind of push that forward with the anticipation of launching it at the end of the year as a process, or at the very beginning of 2023 to be ready for that following summer, for this like summer 2023 installation date or something.
I feel that we probably couldn't be as definite as that, as in terms of the location, because we're not the sole decision makers.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that was my question to you. Was there a way of, like, discussing the possibility with the stakeholders at the community center to say, hey, listen, we'd be really interested in placing a platform for artwork display, where is there a place that you think that the group thinks would be amenable to that, and not with nothing set in stone, but that we could really start that conversation and find out. If it's dead in the water, then we move elsewhere and we look at another site. But it sounds to me like there's quite a right potential for doing that there. Can we just get a little bit more of a firm note or point, or yay or nay on that?
Yeah, I think, both Jamie and I are on the community center select steering committee and working on the project, so we can bring that forward. It might, I think we probably have a little bit of time as well. We don't need a firm decision immediately.
No, not at all. But I just know how quickly the months fly by, and
right. So maybe it's an action item for Jamie and I to bring it forward to community center project management team, and then we can do that. And it might be, Jamie, I don't know if this is something that the Hearth may get behind as well, potentially.
Probably the more specific we're able to be, well, no, this is a question. If we were able to be more specific in terms of the public art project that we were imagining, would that be helpful for the cultural spaces grant? No.
It might be. I honestly need this. It was just brought to my attention the other day that it's an option in there, so I need to look into it a little bit more. And I'm realizing as we're having this conversation that within our work plan, we have bench and windows in there as possibilities as well for sort of making an art project that has a practical element as well in terms of what's needed for the building. So maybe it's sort of more, the action item is more to get more information and come back to committee about what our options may be. And I'm happy to show anybody the site plans as well in that time.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you,
Is that
Jillian.
okay?
Appreciate
Sorry,
it.
I know it's quite vague, but.
No, that's okay. I mean, like you say, we do have time, but the fact that we would, at least begin this discussion is exactly all we need to do right now.
Okay.
Excellent. Okay. Other business. Is there any other business stuff? Nope. Done and done then on that. Okay. Do we want to try and attempt a next meeting date?
Sure.
Okay.
Bill walks away.
I'm out of here.
This timing, like the actual point in the day at which we are trying to meet seems to work for everybody. We've been having some good success with this one. So should we at least say that a 4:30 start time for the next one works, or have people got different opinions?
Depends on the day for me.
Yes, of course.
So if we do 4:30 on Thursday, May 19th, that's a week after a community center select steering committee meeting.
Okay.
I have a information session that I need to give at work that day, at that time.
The Wednesday of the 18th.
That's totally clear for me.
Juliana, I don't know.
Well, it's sure.
What is it?
It's quite soon, it feels like.
Oh, I see. Sorry.
But we do have items on our work plan that we're all supposed to be
No, I
working
think
on,
it's-
so.
I think it's true. We just came out of.
Yeah.
So what about June 8th?
Is that, what day of the week is that? So
I'm just grabbing dates, right?
that's my birthday, actually. I don't know. Do I really want to
Not then.
commit to something on my birthday?
How about June 15th? It's a Wednesday.
June 15th, 2 months.
2 months, very civilized.
All right.
Well, perhaps people can tackle some of the items on the work plan that are, the
Yeah, I
engineering
think
work
we
and-
should definitely. I think, Steph, if we're going to have a nice little break of 2 months in between, I think we should actually come to the table the next time with some stuff done. So let's make a point of,
You have to assign homework.
please. Yeah, let's assign some homework. Okay. Sorry, what was that date again? June 15th, you said?
Wednesday, June 15th at 4:30 p.m.
Okay. Yep. I'm going to just say that works for me. Let's go with that for now and see what happens.
Sorry, is June, what
Wednesday,
was the date?
15th. But I don't want you putting it in your calendar. I'll send you a calendar invite, Phil, so it
Awesome.
flashed in the air.
Okay.
Maybe give me a few minutes.
Yeah, of course. That's great. Thank you.
Okay.
If
We'll
it's
let
something
that-
changes, then it changes for me. And because I think it's happened where you've created it and then I change it, but it doesn't change at your end because you've.
Yeah,
Right.
that has happened.
Mhm. Okay, well, I think we'll just move to adjourn our meeting. All in favor? We're all good?
Aye.
Excellent. Well, thank you all again. And look forward to all of our exciting next steps.
Thank you.
We'll see you around town.
Sounds good.